This is getting really annoying. Private still. Why won't you let me do it? Let me see if I can somehow go to YouTube Studio and make it public. This is so annoying. It says it's public. Okay, I'm gonna have to look at it on my phone. Wait, just a second, guys, because it's not showing up on my end at all. All right, it says it's public. Um, okay. Here, let me go here. All right, there we go. Finally. Oh, guys, that was so annoying. I don't know why Zoom wants to torture me. Angeli. Hey, Angeli. Zoom seriously wants to torture me every week, guys. Oh, okay. Finally. I'm really stressed out now. I'm already late. 15 minutes late, which I'm in McMurtry. I'm not supposed to be late, right? Okay. Put my pleasant face on. Technology stresses me out. I'm telling you, it really stresses me out badly, especially when it's not working for me. Hey, okay, guys, here we go. Okay, so we're talking about raising teenagers today. Yay. I'm speaking today on raising teens. This is something I've covered many times in the past, but as I raise more and more adults, I find myself updating advice or reiterating advice when something we have done has actually worked. Now, I by no means have all the answers, and most of the time, I still have no idea what I'm doing. As I look back, though, I do see some common threads that are woven through our life. So I would like to share some things that have worked for us. I'll be covering work ethic, developing character, relationships with your teens, and dating in this episode. And I have to throw this disclaimer out there. Okay. So, hey, Beth. Hey, Kaylin. I have to throw this disclaimer out there. If I have a differing opinion from another podcaster who's on YouTube, another IFB preacher's wife, if I have a differing opinion, it is not an attack on said person. I could possibly very well know this person or be friends with anyone that's giving advice online. But if I do something differently, that's not a personal attack on them. Every home does things differently, and that is fine. Every home, it is up to each home and each entity, each family entity to decide what they are going to do for their teenagers. And you can take some of my advice if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. If you don't like the way my kids are turning out, don't take my advice. You know, we have to judge each situation, and each kid is going to be different. So, what has worked for my children might not work for your children or your teens because they've been raised differently than my kids have been raised. My kids have been raised in our home. So, this is what we do for our teens. And, you know, so far, I love the outcome. So I'm not going to change what I'm doing because it's working with my older kids. So, I mean, my oldest son, I couldn't be more pleased or more well pleased with how he has turned out and how he has decided to live his life and how him and his wife are patterning, how their home is running, how they're running their home. I could not be more pleased. He has decided to stay IFB. He has decided to adopt the same standards and convictions that we have taught him. And I'm so pleased about that. My older adult kids are also following suit with that. So I'm very proud of Jason. He just bought his first home at 21. He will just live next door to us. So he's still living with us while they fix that house up. It had a lot of work that needs to be done because the man that lived there for about 30 years, never updated a single thing in his life. I don't think he cleaned a day in his life. So it has a lot of work that needs to be done. But, you know, Abigail will be 20 this year. She is flourishing in her role as just taking care of children, teaching piano. She loves her life. And, you know, it's the way we do things is working for us. So I'm going to share a little bit of what we've done throughout the years. Yes, Kaylin, you can use this advice right now if you so desire. But I want you to realize, first of all, having good teens starts years before. So don't do a sorry job raising your kids up until the time that they're a teen and then expect them just to like magically turn good, because I'm telling you, the teen years can be very challenging. Um, I'm going to say they're challenging in different ways. When kids are little, you're physically exhausted. Like maybe you're not sleeping well, you're just running around all day chasing, these kids all day long. So you're just exhausted, like physically exhausted. But if you do a good job training them overall mentally, it's not that hard, because don't run across the street, Johnny. They don't run across the street. Now, if you haven't been training them well, it could be a little bit more of a challenge. But I'm just saying, when kids are little, they can stay put where you put them. And it's mentally not much goes into it. Now, obviously, like day to day, I'm talking to Kelly the whole day, Kelly and Hannah. She was just asking a ton of questions about Jesus and him dying on the cross last night. So we had a big, long discussion about that. She's 5. She's the age I was when I got saved, when I realized my need for a savior. So I know the Lord is going to start working on her heart. So when she's asking questions, I'm talking, obviously we're instructing, we're training, but overall, mentally, it's pretty easy. Our 5-year-olds still think that we hung the moon. They think we're the best thing since sliced bread. They love us, they adore us, whatever. So it gets a little bit harder. Once they start getting 10, 11, 12, they start realizing mom and dad are not perfect. Mom and dad have faults. And when they're a teenager, they have to decide, am I going to adopt these same things that mom and dad are teaching us, or am I just going to abandon them and choose a different lifestyle? So, what if you're saved later in life and you have teens? Because I have seen this happen. You have adults who get saved later in life. They have these teenagers and suddenly they want to adopt the lifestyle of the IFB church that they're in, but their teens are bucking them at like every corner. Like they won't listen to them. Well, number one, don't push things, especially salvation, with them. The Lord has to work on their heart. And a lot of teens are skeptical. Maybe you've tried things in the past. Maybe you tried becoming a Buddhist. Maybe you tried Jehovah's Witness. Maybe you tried Catholicism. And now you're trying this. You said you got saved. You said you trusted on the Lord for salvation. Well, you've tried other stuff too. Maybe you tried liquor. Maybe you tried drugs. So your teen's going to be a little bit skeptical of you at the beginning. Give it time. Let them see you grow for the better. Let them see you change as Christ works in your life for the better. Be very patient with them. Don't have unrealistic expectations. If you went your entire life living like a heathen and living like the devil, and then all of a sudden you changed and you expect your kid to change too, who maybe hasn't even gotten saved, it's unrealistic to expect them to morph into or have the same journey as you. So be very patient when it comes to them. Communicate with them, talk to them about it, but overall, having a happy home is the most important, letting them see God work through your life, letting them see you be consistent and faithful for more than a year, more than 2 years. It might take 5 years. It might take 10 years. It might take 15 years, especially if it comes to them like getting saved. So give it time, be patient, don't have unrealistic expectations. But what are some things that we can do to develop character in our teens? Now, almost all of these things, like I said, they start so much earlier, and it's unrealistic to never train your kids or prepare your kids. And then when they turn 13, just be like, okay, I'm going to have like hardworking, responsible, easy kids now. Right. No, it takes so much more than that. When it comes to developing character, the biggest thing that we can do for our teenagers is we can model this to them, because words are kind of cheap to teenagers. They don't really care about what's coming out of your mouth. They watch you more than anything. So show them number one, what a good friend looks like. If you want your daughters to have good friendships, model that for them. Don't be so judgmental of everyone. If you're around your church all day on Sunday and you come home that night and you're just ripping everyone apart, they're going to pick up on that. And what you do, maybe you're just a little judgmental. Maybe there's just one family in particular you don't like and you just pick them apart every Sunday night. What you do, where is that saying? What you do in moderation, that's the saying. What you do in moderation, your teens are going to do in excess. And that applies to everything in your life. If you eat junky, your kids are going to eat junkier than you. If you use profanity, your kids are going to use more profanity than you do. If you allow a little bit of nudity in the movies that you watch in your home, your kids are going to allow more nudity in their own lives. So whatever you do, most kids, 95% of kids are going to take it above and beyond that. So just remember that when raising kids. But teens are naturally cynics. Okay. Teens can see through everyone. Teens know usually if someone's bad or someone's good. They can tell. They're not stupid. And they're naturally cynical of people. And that's why it's a really hard sell if you are telling them one thing but doing quite another. It's going to be a hard sell. The whole lifestyle thing, being a Baptist, serving the Lord, loving the Lord, it's going to be a hard sell if you're not doing that at home. So teens can see through everything. They're naturally cynics. So really, you need to dial back the judgmental. Every other home doesn't do it as well as we do. Every person's a fake. Every person's a hypocrite. People are evil. People are terrible. You need to dial that back a little bit because teenagers are naturally cynics. So they're going to go above and beyond what you even are. Be real at home. You have to be real at home. You can't be fake at home and then go through the church doors and be a completely different person. They see that. They know your true personality. Teach them to be ethical in their dealings with others, whether that comes with money things, being ethical just in keeping their word. Teenagers don't have a lot of money and they don't really do like businesses or side businesses. So if your teenager promises something to someone in the church, whether that's, I'm going to watch your kids, whatever it may be, have them follow through on that. Teach them to be above board when it comes to things like that, like keeping their word. Teach them to keep their word, teach them to be trustworthy. If they say it's going to get done, make sure they get it done. Show them punctuality in your own life. Punctuality is big as a McMurtry. As I'm late for my show today. Like I said, though, I'm a McMurtry. We're not supposed to be late. And I know things are a little bit more flexible with my show and you guys understand that and everything. But when it comes to like my piano lessons, I'm not late for my piano lessons. Like if I'm late, there's something going on, like an emergency, like a window broke or someone needs stitches or, it has to be like truly a big deal for me to be late when it comes to things like that. So we model how to be hardworking. We model how to be trustworthy. We model how to be good friends. We model serving the Lord. And, they're going to pick up, like, if you're at church every time the doors are open, they're going to grow up with that same desire. And so for all of my kids have, like, it's really, really weird if a McMurtry misses church. Like they have to be puking their guts out or have a raging fever or, whatever. It's a big deal if a McMurtry misses a church. So now if there's been a time where, they absolutely could not make it for whatever reason, they feel so weird because you just don't miss church when you're in the McMurtry home. And we've modeled that for them. What do y'all do to make sure that they do get things done? What consequences? I don't know because my kids get things done most of the time. If it's around the house and they're not getting it done, then I would say as they're younger teenagers, I definitely, about the only thing I do is take away phone. They don't even have a phone till they're 16, so that doesn't even work till then. Um, Take away tablets. A couple of mine have tablets. They have like old burner phones that only work on Wi-Fi. So take that away for like a week until they improve, and that usually does the trick. Take away all electronics, no watching television. Like I said, we don't have regular TV, but not even watching Prime or YouTube or anything like that. So we cut back big time on electronics. And side note, I've even noticed with the babies, if they are acting out, a lot of times it's directly related to they've been watching iPad or they've been watching too many movies or whatever it is. So I definitely think electronics has a big part of it. And then just letting them, even as they get older and they start maybe getting jobs, um, making them have their own responsibility. So I've never been one that's hovering over my kids as far as um them getting up. So I tell them they're on their own. You have a job now, you need to be responsible. So if they wake up and they're late, they're late, they're tardy. So far I've not had this really be a big deal though, because all of them have pretty good work ethic by the time they're teenagers. So they take their jobs very seriously. If there's ever been a time when they've slept in, I don't even know if there's ever been a time Jason's been late for work, honestly, or Tommy for that matter. They're both really good about it. So, um, but if it was to come down to that, letting them reap the natural consequences that comes from being tardy or comes from, not showing up, maybe they get fired. So I've not had one go through that, but I would just probably let them deal with the natural consequences that comes from them not doing what they're supposed to do, basically. Um, but yeah, you model a clean home, a pleasant home, etc. You model a sweet spirit. So if you want your daughters to be kind, you have to model it. If you want your daughters to show grace to others, you have to model it. If you want your daughters to show forgiveness, you have to model it. So, um, but then also on the flip side, you have to teach them how to establish boundaries with people in a healthy way. And I've often been called mean or just too honest, too blunt, because I do establish boundaries. And I'm not talking about just freaking out when there's not a reason to be freaking out. I'm talking about when someone has overstepped the boundaries and they have tried to hurt you, intentionally hurt you. You might need to put your foot down and be like, no, we're not doing this, or we need to distance our friendship. It's not going to work. So I'm talking about something that's legitimately been done to hurt. I do think we can be a little too sensitive sometimes, and a lot of it lines up with our cycle. So be mindful of that. And it's just common biology. We get a little more anxious, we get a little more restless right before we start our cycle. So be mindful of when that's about to happen and just tell yourself, Cassandra, you're overreacting. It's because you're going to start your cycle in a day. So, be mindful of that. It's important. And it's important to teach our girls the natural rhythm when it comes to life and cycles and the way things work and your hormones and how they go up and down. And, you know, I've been criticized because I've said that we have a harder time before our cycle, but it's true. I don't know why there's even an issue there. We have a harder time at different times of our cycle. Even the world knows this. So it's just common biology. Yeah. So you can teach them how to establish boundaries and how to be. I've often been said that I am good at like politically, like putting things, but it's because I've been in ministry for so long. I understand that oftentimes if you tell someone you have a real problem in this area, it doesn't go over very well. It's all in the way that you phrase it. So you could rephrase that and say, this might not be the case, but I really feel, hurt when you do this. Or, instead of just coming out of the gate, like attacking them, be like, this is how it's coming across to me. Maybe it's not, but maybe it's my problem, but this is how I'm perceiving the situation. So you can teach them how to phrase their words in a way that they're not going to intentionally hurt people or so on and so forth. So developing character, it all comes down to you exhibiting the character that you want to see in your daughters or your sons. If you're not ethical with people, they're going to grow up not being ethical with people. We've seen it so many times where maybe someone owns a business, a father starts a business, and he is not ethical in his dealings with his customers. And his son eventually takes over the business. And guess what? His son isn't ethical either. But we've also seen the flip side where someone who is ethical and has a son who takes over, his son is also ethical with his customers. So it's all about good ethics. What about work ethic? So number one, you have to be a hard worker first and foremost. Start them young. We start our kids young when it comes to helping us, helping around the house, doing chores. Even Hannah can help out, putting stuff away, taking stuff from the table, putting it in the sink. Now she is the baby, and it's very well known that she's the baby. And so I have to go out of my way to make sure that she listens to me and she does stuff. There's been times in the past where I'll say, she'll eat a popsicle and I'll say, okay, now you need to go throw it away. No, I don't want to. And she'll throw it on the ground. And we have to train her to pick it up and put it in the garbage. And sometimes it's been a little bit of a fight, but they catch on very quickly. So it's a common rule in our house. You don't throw garbage on the ground. That's disgusting. Are we like pigs? Do we live in a pigsty? No. So teach them, start them when they're young, teach them from the time that they're little. Teens are going to need more sleep, and that's okay. It's okay for teenagers to need more sleep. Let them sleep and let them sleep in. Sometimes that's the beauty of homeschooling. They can sleep in till 8, 9, but expect a lot during the day. I do expect my kids to get their school done. I do expect my teen girls to help out, whether that's with cooking, cleaning, laundry, whatever. I expect them to help keep the house running and smooth. And that's fine, but I do let them sleep in too. I'm not that rigid about waking up at like 6, 7. Most of the time, my older girls, more so than the babies, Lana and the babies are usually up by 6:37. But my older kids, they sleep until 8:30 most days, and that's fine. They need more sleep at this point in their life. Their body is changing, their body is growing. So I let them sleep. It's kind of nice actually, because when they're up to 10, 11, 12, they are still getting up so early. And you're like, are they ever going to sleep in? And then they become teenagers and you're like, are they ever going to wake up? And, it just kind of flips, but it's all part of just their bodies adapting and growing, and it's fine. Give them age appropriate responsibilities. So school is their main work at this age, and take it seriously. It's even if life is busy, they have to get school done. So for us, most of our days are pretty much patterned the same. We don't do like most days, unless there's just an exception to the rule where they can't get in. That is the beauty of being homeschooled too, like to doctor's appointments, eye doctors, dentists. You can do it during school hours, where a lot of times it's hard to get scheduled in because all the school age kids that are in school are trying to get those after 3 appointments. So I try to keep it rare, but through the most part, we start school by 9. My kids are usually done by 1 or 2 with their school. And then they have chores first and foremost that they do before they start school. Then they have a few chores in the evening. But other than that, we don't really run around during the day very much. 2, because I'm tied down with piano lessons and different things like that. So school right now is their main work, and they do it pretty much every day. They're actually going to be finished in a couple weeks because we're not behind, because my kids pretty much for the most part do it every day, unless there's a special event like family camp we go to every year in Florida in October. That is during school. I mean, in vacation, there's special occasions, but for the most part, they do school every day. When it comes to teen boys, teaching them work ethic, this is going to fall on the dads a lot. And the reason that my boys are such hard workers is because my husband was a stickler for this with them. The reason he is such a hard worker is his dad was a stickler with this for him. And my father-in-law did an amazing job of raising a hardworking son. And my husband has done an amazing job raising hardworking boys. So They are not ones that are sitting in the basement playing video games all day. In fact, I can't even remember the last time Jason played a video game because he has been super busy, being an electrician. He's being an apprentice and he's going to electrician school. He's just about to finish up his first semester of electrician school, and it's really nice seeing him. He loves it. And he just bought this new house. And yesterday he just installed his first light all by himself, like drilled a hole in the ceiling, put a light in, ran the electricity and all that. So he's really picking up on that. But they're both really hard workers. And this is going to fall on the dads. So my husband started our boys very, very young. From the time that they would not set off the governor on the lawnmower, the riding lawnmower, they were zipping around mowing the lawn. From the time they were little, he put a play rake in their hands and they'd be out there raking up leaves. Did they really help much at that time? No, but it was setting them up to be hard workers. He used to have a business where he would go around and he would do preservation on repossessed homes. And he took the boys with him and they would help him load and unload all of the tools. They would help him mow the lawns a lot, pick up garbage, different things like that. And he would pay him like, I don't know, $5 a day or something. But to a 10-year-old, that's like crazy. Like sometimes they'd make $20 and they would be like, well, I'm so rich. I have all this money. So from the time that they were 9, 10, they were doing that. And then by the time that they were 12, they had their first official paying job. And that was really hard, nasty work. And that was detasseling. Here in Illinois, it's a rite of passage. Almost every teenage boy does it. And that's basically you're taking the tassels off of the corn. It's hot, it's wet, it's muggy, it's disgusting. You get bit by bugs, but it's really good at teaching them how to be a hard worker. By the time that my son was 14, he was a crew leader and he was overseeing teenagers on the bus. And, his boss still is his friend on Facebook from that time of his life and still talks about how much of a hard worker he was. So, they've really done us proud with being hard workers, but this is not only for boys. This is also for girls. Your girls need to be hard workers as well. So have your girls try their hand at making money. Even though I tell my girls that being a mom and wife is the highest calling and it's literally the best thing that can happen to you, they don't know when that's going to happen. And because they don't know when that's going to happen, I encourage them to develop skills. I am not against my girls getting a job as they get older, as long as it's the right type of job. I don't want them working in food industry. Food industry is a scary place. Both my boys worked there, not great experiences. And I decided I don't want my girls around that. But I have no problem with my girls stretching their wings and being a little bit independent too. I feel like there's this homeschool mentality where parents can make their homes into a prison. And they think, if I just shield my kid from every outside influence, I'm going to raise a good kid. That's not the case. I have seen kids literally, as soon as they turn 18, break free because it is like a prison. And because in their minds, they associate God and Christianity and standards and holy living with basically being locked down for their entire teen years, they just deserve all of it. And they go crazy. They get into drugs. They get into drinking. They get into tattoos. They fornicate with their girlfriend or boyfriend. Basically everything they are taught not to do, they dive headfirst into it. And I think it goes back to the parents thinking that outside influences are what ruin their teen. My boys were working around kids that use profanity, kids that talked about things that they weren't supposed to from the time that they were 11, 12. And what I told my boys is I prepared them for that. I said, now listen, you're going to be around kids that are not going to have the same home life as you. Because of this, they're going to be looking at things on their phone they shouldn't be. They're going to be talking about things that they shouldn't be. You need to learn to just walk away. Okay. You need to learn to walk away if it is something that's inappropriate. You need to have the responsibility to tell them, I don't want to look at that on your phone. I don't want to talk about that. I don't, whatever it was. So it's not that you just have to shield them from every outside influence. It's all a matter of having their heart and teaching them character and teaching them the ability to stand up to their peers if they need to. So, jobs for teens. Do I encourage it? Do I not encourage it? Every family is different, but my boys have been working since they were 12, and I kept a close eye. We went into this thing scared to death. Like, am I going to ruin my kid forever if I let him get a job? Am I going to I don't know. You don't know when you're first going into it. Now that we have a little bit of confidence because we've seen that it's okay. It's going to be okay. Now, now that we've seen that, we can just relax a little bit when it comes to this. Let me answer your text real quick. So yeah, just chill a little bit. I feel like people are way too stressed out when it comes to this. It's not like one decision that you do is going to make or break your kid. It's all a matter of having their heart. So, and that's what I'm going to talk about now, relationships with teens. Obviously, relationships with teenagers are a little bit more difficult to navigate. Girls need a strong bond with their dad, especially when it comes to future relationships with boys. If they don't have a strong relationship with their dad, this is really going to show up in who they pick to date, just even when it comes to preserving their innocence and their purity. If they don't have a good relationship with dad, a lot of times girls will just do whatever physically with a guy, because there's a self-esteem issue, there's a confidence issue there, and they think that if they give themselves to a guy, it's going to fill that void, the void that not having a strong relationship with their dad fills. So they do need a strong bond with their dad. They need to know their worth by the time that they're a teen. They need to know that their purity is important. They need to know that they're special and created unique in the eyes of God. You must have your teens' hearts if you don't want rebellion. If you don't want rebellion to be in the home, you have to have their hearts. I've often been asked, like, how do you, and Angeli just said, how do you avoid your teens becoming secretive, sneaking around, etc.? You have their hearts. And I wrote this down. If they are sneaking around behind your back, it's a heart issue. It's a heart issue. First of all, they don't care about disappointing God, because it's not about pleasing God and not doing certain things like sneaking out of the house, watching bad movies, drinking, drugs. It's not about I'm breaking God's heart when I do this. It's about I just don't want to be caught. So it comes down to I don't want to be caught rather than I don't want to displease God. So really instilling a love for the Lord and the things for the Lord in their heart from the time they're young is key. And then also just having a good relationship to where they would be devastated if they disappointed us. My oldest is 22, and he just told me the other day that he, even at 22, being married on his own, going to a different Baptist church 2.5 hours away, he said he is still like very careful in the decisions he makes because he doesn't want to disappoint me and his dad. And that meant a lot to me because even at 22, and my husband's the same way with his dad. He doesn't want to disappoint his dad and his mom. And I don't want to disappoint my parents. My dad's in heaven, but I don't want to, I'm hoping he's like seeing what's going on up there and like rooting me on, And so I think it should be in us, if we have a good relationship with our parents, we don't want to disappoint them and we don't want to bring them shame. And so it all comes down to having your teens' hearts. It's so important. And, don't smother them. I feel like so many parents just think if I keep my teen from everything, I'm going to raise a good teen. That's not the key to keeping your teen from, turning out wrong. The key is having their heart. At this age, teens should be concerned about, first and foremost, God seeing them. And secondly, hurting you. That should definitely be in their minds. So For us, the way that we avoid them becoming secretive or sneaking around is we daily teach them the things of the Lord, and we pray that God will convict them of sin if they have any. We pray that we have a good relationship with us so that they don't want to disappoint us. And I've not yet had any that's ever snuck out of the house that had secret relationships going on, really, or, you know, everything comes to light too, and teaching them that eventually your sins will be found out, and they always are. So, but I do think keeping an open line of communication, talking about everything, knowing what's going on in your teens' lives, being aware of the signs. There have been certain times where I'm like, something's off. I can tell. And I don't let it go. I dig. And oftentimes it comes to light what's going on before it gets to be a big issue. So I've been able to head things off because we have really good gut instinct as moms. God gives us that gut instinct, and we know when something's going on and when something's not kosher. So trust your gut. Teens have bigger problems than when they're little, and it's going to take a lot of late night talks. No one ever warned me about that. I was a people pleaser growing up, and I don't really ever remember having a ton of late night talks with my mom. So, and then I was out of the house before like my brother came to be a teenager and my younger siblings were teenagers. And I think that they did maybe, but I never really did. So I wasn't prepared for just staying up till 1, 2 in the morning, just hashing things out. And teenagers, for some reason, they thrive on talking late at night. Whereas like my husband and I, we just want to go to bed by 9, right? But no, teenagers actually do thrive on the late night talks. And I found that you just have to grin and bear it. You got to work through these things. As they grow to be adults, they're going to make decisions that you don't necessarily agree with, or they're going to do things differently than you. You have to be okay with that because they're not you, you're not them. And you're just going to have to learn to accept that. I've told my adult kids, I don't necessarily agree with your decision, but I'm going to support you in this, whatever you decide, because I want to have a healthy relationship with them. So even if it's something that I don't necessarily agree with, I'm going to support whatever they decide. And they might have to accept the consequences of that decision, especially if it goes against my gut instinct. They might have to accept the consequences that comes with that, and that's on them. You have to let them be adults. This is where faith comes in when you're raising teenagers. And this is where not only faith in God's word, but faith that you have been raising them well from the time that they were little. Have goals from the time that they're young. So I have 3 main goals when it comes to my teenagers. Number 1, their salvation. I pray that they get married. I'm looking ahead. I pray that they get saved from when they're young. So salvation is number 1. Number 2, I want and desire for all of them to marry pure. That's my biggest desire. I want them to marry pure. And then number 3, utmost, I want them to serve God with their lives. I want them to continue on being a Baptist. I want them to raise my grandchildren as Baptist. I want them to realize that this is the best life there is. And so far, they are deciding that. So what you do in moderation, let me reiterate this, what you do in moderation, your teens will do in excess. This is where the fruit of the home starts coming out. This is where your methods start coming out. Did they work? Did they not work? If they didn't work, readjust, fix what didn't work. If they did work, keep doing it. Don't change things up just because your younger kids are coming up. So now let's touch on teenage dating. I get asked about this a lot. And there are a lot of different thoughts when it comes to teenage dating. And every home does things differently. But I'm going to go over some things that we've done. These things are working very well. I will say, too, that they have worked well even with relationships that didn't end up panning out. Okay, so maybe a relationship ends, and that's okay. One of the reasons that you get to know people is because you want to see if this is going to end in marriage. If you see something that it, concerns you, or you're like, marriage is kind of off the table now. That's where it ends. And because we do things the way we do, it has really helped with the heartbreak. So what do I mean when I talk about that? Well, it's helped avoid sin, because we do chaperone dating. My kids, and they're not physical with whoever they're dating, they have no regrets. They haven't given up kisses. They haven't given up purity. They haven't done things that they regret with another person that possibly could cause baggage in future relationships. So, because we do that the way it does protect them in a way. So, number one, we do not we do not do teenage dating. And I know there's different schools of thought on this, and that's fine, whatever. You do you and we'll do us. But for us, we have, and this has actually been reinforced by different situations throughout the years. We've made mistakes when it comes to this area. So we've readjusted. We've let a couple of our kids start relationships too young, and I think that was to their detriment. And then that maybe if they would have waited till they started these relationships when they were older, maybe they would have panned out. I don't know. But we have come to realize that teenagers are not emotionally ready to handle deep relationships. And they're just not there mentally. They're not there emotionally. They're not there in the development. Their brain is still developing. So because of that, because their brain is still developing, they don't even know who they are as a person. We just have decided that we want our teenagers to enjoy being a teenager. Marriage is going to come soon enough. Relationships are going to come soon enough. Responsibility is going to come soon enough. And we want them to enjoy being a teenager. So I would encourage you, please let your kids just enjoy being kids. We have seen 12, 13-year-olds pushed into relationships, and they haven't even gone through puberty yet. And they have their peers pressuring them. They have their parents pressuring them. And it's really sad because their whole life is wrapped up in what this other person thinks. And most relationships at that point, if you start them at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, they're not even going to last all the way to the marriage altar. So, teens are not emotionally ready to handle deep relationships. Let them enjoy their teen years. Encourage friendships, and we do with our kids, but they can wait for anything serious until they're adults. And I almost feel 18 is really young to be getting married. If you got married at 18 and you made it work, go for it. An 18-year-old is still a teenager. A 19-year-old is still a teenager. 20 and 21, I think, is when you finally your brain has started maturing at a good pace. 20, 21. And so for us, we just encourage our teenagers. They know until they're 18, it's off limits. It's not even a consideration. Don't even ask. It's not going to happen. Can you be friends with them in a group setting? Yes. Can you be exclusively their one and only? No. So we've encouraged them to, yes, seek out friendships, but girl friendships are more important if you're a girl. If you're a guy friendships are more important at this age, and it'll come soon enough for you. So enjoy being a teenager. And then when you get old enough to consider marriage and you've developed a little bit more emotionally and physically and all that, go for it. We do chaperoned dating. So there are different schools of thoughts on this too. That's fine. We always have had a chaperone. Now the chaperone has to be, obviously a chaperone is not going to count if it's Hannah. It has to be someone that's actually like aware of what's going on. So siblings do count for a lot of things, like riding in the car somewhere, even going out for a bite to eat. Siblings do count. We are fine with that, but we do chaperone dating because we feel like that is the best way to just get around any type of serious temptation that's going to come. So we don't do sleepovers. So if one of my boys had a significant other, they would not be spending the night. I feel like that's very dangerous. That's a very dangerous ground. So we've had it before where people in relationships have spent the night in a hotel in town. They've stayed here at the church overnight. We don't do sleepovers in our home. And we always do chaperone dating. When they start dating, marriage should be the goal. If they decide marriage is off the table, they shouldn't take the relationship any further. And that's kind of the thing. If I don't ascribe to this whole like Bill Gothard, like SM Davis thing where you're like giving away part of your heart to each relationship and you should only ever have one. Because I have raised my girls and my boys in a way that this marriage is for life. Okay. So we're raising them with that. Marriage is for life. And if there is some glaring fault that you cannot live with, it's better to end the relationship than to have to deal with that for the rest of your life if you're not okay with it. Whether that's, them not being spiritual enough, them having a major character flaw, maybe they're lazy, maybe there's other character flaws, they have a temper. There's just different things, if you're not willing to live with it and for the rest of your life, then you just need to end the relationship. And it's better to do that than to marry someone with doubts and like be worried about that and then have to live with that the rest of your life. So we don't do physical touching, intimate touching. So I'm talking about, I'm not going crazy like a handshake. Okay. I've known of some like Bible colleges that won't even let you shake hands of them. That's just weird. I mean, who gets turned on from a handshake? If you get turned on from a handshake, you've got serious problems. Okay. I'm talking about intimate touching. I'm not talking about a handshake or even a hug at certain like traumatic events, funerals, some happy occasion. A hug can be very platonic. I'm talking about stroking, petting, fondling, kissing. All of those things stoke a fire that's not supposed to be put out until after marriage. So that is the reason we don't do intimate touching when it comes to that. If you start making out, you start caressing, you start putting your hands all over each other, that's going to fuel the passion and that's going to go more and more and more. You're going to push those boundaries every single time until you've committed fornication, then you've got a baby out of wedlock, and there's just all sorts of problems. And we know fornication is a big sin. So we cut out that temptation and you don't even need to light that fire until you get the ring on your finger. So we don't do intimate physical touching. For our boys, we want them to have a good job and to be able to provide for a family. So if they want a woman, they need to work somewhere other than McDonald's. My husband has always used this as a huge motivator for them. You got to stay in school. You got to provide for a wife someday. You need to do this career training through Walmart that's paying for it totally free because you got to provide for a wife someday. You need to do this kind of apprenticeship because you got to provide for a wife someday. It's a great motivator. And I don't believe in waiting until you have a woman to like go get financially secure. No, use your teen years and use your like young adult years to really get a good head start when it comes to that. Because you get married and you have all the responsibility of a wife and kids, you are going to be so strapped. You're not going to be able to like start up a new career. So you might be stuck at a factory job for your entire life if you don't start early. So for our boys, we use it as a motivator. For our girls, financial security in the guy that they are interested in is huge. If you have a guy that's working a minimum wage job and he works the bare minimum. So let's say he's working, I don't know, he's not looking for another job. He's not looking for a career. He's just working, putting in his shift at Wendy's and coming home and playing video games. That's not the guy for my daughters. And I don't think that just because he gets married to my daughter, he's suddenly going to become a hard worker. No. The guy that impresses me is the guy that if he can only find a minimum wage job, he's working too. He's working around the clock. He's barely sleeping because he's working as many minimum wage hours as he possibly can. That's the guy that's going to impress me. So I don't think that he's going to just suddenly become responsible and have all this work ethic just because he's interested in a girl. No. And that all starts when he's young. Set him up for success. My husband has done everything to set up our boys for success. I hope they realize how much he's done. Even Jason and this house, he did all the legwork for it. He put all the plans in motion. He was dealing with the banks and all the inspections and everything that came along with it. He did so much just to set him up for success. So we're very much about not just raising them till they're 18 and then letting them loose. We're about setting them up for success from the time that they're little. And if our kid lives with us until he's 25, that's fine by us. We're not going to kick him out just because he's an age. Just because they're an age doesn't make them an adult. And when it comes to my adult kids, we've never had an issue with even them choosing to date people we wouldn't agree with. They've always wanted our approval, and they've always wanted our stamp of approval on whoever they were talking about. So because I think we have their hearts, they want to please us when it comes to that. So my sons aren't going to go out looking for a Jezebel that they know I'm going to clash with, you know, and they're going to try to date people, you know, Baptist saved girl that they know I would get along with, you know, that I would like. So that's never been an issue. Just because they turn 18, that's just a number. Especially with my kids, they aren't like, woohoo, I'm 18, I get to leave the house. It's not how it works in the McMurtry home. And I've told my girls that. I'm like, I don't care if you live with me until you're 30. If you live with me until you're 30 over marrying a bum, I am so thrilled with that, because marriage is for life. And I've seen marriages where they marry a guy and he's lazy, he's not a spiritual leader, and maybe it's a pastor's daughter, and she's stuck taking the kids to church every Sunday while he sits home and plays video games. Not for my daughters. Not for my daughters. I would rather have them live with me forever than be stuck in that life. So for our girls, so financial security and the guy they are interested in is huge. We teach them what to look for in a spouse. If someone is not spouse worthy, they are not considered. We don't do this whole dating for fun thing. We don't do this dating for a fling. No, the goal should be marriage. And that is why you date, especially when you don't do physical things, because that is why you date, is to get married. Have a list of a timeline when your kids are dating. Give them goals. So like, this is the getting to know you stage. If you really like them, and then in Baptist culture, there's like this whole like pre-engagement thing where it's like a big deal to ask someone to be your boyfriend, or not, you know, the girl doesn't ask the boy to be the boyfriend, but it's a big thing when the guy asks the girl to be his girlfriend. So it's like a getting to know you stage. Okay, yep, I like you enough to be my boyfriend, girlfriend. Asking them to be their girlfriend. Then it's asking, and the dad's involved in all this. And then it's asking the dad for permission to ask for marriage. Then it's marriage, you know, all that. So a timeline is good to give to guys, especially so they know how long they have to save for a ring, how long they have to save for a house. And I'm just going to say long engagements are not wise, especially when you do chaperone dating, especially when you do no physical, intimate touching. A long engagement is stupid. So if you know that they're the one for you, marry them. You know, guys, wife her up. Girls, say yes. You know, you shouldn't be dating if marriage is not even on the table. You're like, oh, I'll wait 5 years. You know, I like my life now. 5 years down the road, whatever. Well, first of all, you're going to enter into temptation. You're probably going to commit fornication. You know, there's a lot of things that can happen with long engagements. So long engagements are not wise. And then just realize overall, if you have their hearts, none of this is going to be difficult for them. They're not going to rebel. Abby told me, I said, are you ever going to be ready to get married? She loves her life. She loves living at home. And she said, yes, I think so. She said, I don't know. She said, but I do. She's like, I was thinking about it the other day, and she has an amazing relationship with her dad. All my girls do with their dad. Their dad is like their hero, and I love it. And she said, I was thinking the other day, I have my dad as an example of a godly man. I have my brothers, and she's very, very close, especially to Tommy. She's like, I see the type of men that my dad and my brothers are. Why would I settle for anything less than what they are? And I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. So encourage your daughters to know that they are worth a good, godly man. Encourage your daughters to wait. Encourage your daughters if there's red flags, you know, and it's not for you, then you just need to walk away, because marriage is for life. And then once you bring kids into the world, that's a soul that's going to be there forever. And you have to consider that, and you're going to be bringing up that child with whoever you marry, and good or bad, if they turn out to be a loser, that's their dad for the rest of their life. So because my girls have such a good relationship with their dad, they have very, very high expectations. Now, if you are a decent guy, you won't mind. You'll rise to the challenge, right? You won't mind at going through my husband, talking to my husband. And my girls have made it very clear that if a guy is ever interested in, you need to talk to my dad. So if you have if it's a guy that's a good, godly guy and is not a coward, he's going to be fine with going through the dad. And we've always kind of left it in our house. Like when it comes to our boys, the girls' rules apply unless we have higher rules, then we want them to follow our rules. This is not to say that we don't give them freedom. And when it comes to my kids, when they're talking to someone, I am very hands off. I know I have a strong personality, but I am not a Budinsky when it comes into, I don't butt into their lives when it comes to their relationship. I leave the decisions up to them. Of course, I watch and I pray, and I'm there for counsel if they need it. But when it comes to them navigating the relationships, I'm very hands off with it because they are adults, and they do need to be, it's not an arranged marriage. I'm not picking out. Now, sometimes I think it'd be easier. It was, but we're not some weird cult that like picks out our kids' spouses. They have to be attracted to them. They have to like them. They have to be okay with living with all of their little, faults and whatever. And, there's maybe decisions I would make that I think this person would be good for you, but it's not what they want. So, at the end of the day, it comes down to a heart issue with all of your kids. And I agree, Beth, my daughters are very blessed to have a great dad. And unfortunately, it is not. A lot of them didn't grow up. So I would encourage you, if you don't have a good role model, get into a church where you can watch godly marriages. Get into a church where you can go to your husband, not your husband, your pastor for advice. Get into a church where you can see those things played out, especially if you have no idea where to start or you have no idea what to look for. A church is a good place to see those things. And so that's what I would encourage any girl that maybe doesn't have a strong role model when it comes to that, or doesn't have a very close relationship to her dad. But yeah, at the end of the day, it comes down to a heart issue with all of your kids. So maybe someday I can get someone on who has a prodigal, but right now I haven't faced that. So I don't know what advice to offer when it comes to that. I'm sorry. I do want to interview someone who would be willing to come on that maybe has dealt with it. Maybe they had a prodigal who came back, and that would be great if anyone knows of anyone. I haven't faced much teen rebellion either. My kids know our rules. They respect our rules for the most part. And we've never had an issue with them sneaking around, sneaking out of the home, going places they weren't supposed to, drinking, smoking, doing drugs, any of that. We don't make our home a prison. Our teens do have freedom. You're probably listening to me like, oh my goodness, like you keep them locked. We don't keep them locked up. We allow our girls to get their licenses. In fact, we take them to driving schools. We pay for driving schools and then get their licenses. When they turn 16, we encourage them to get their licenses. We pay for their car insurance. We encourage independence. We let them live life and we let them do things. Right now, Abby has her whole calendar like booked. Chloe is going to be working as a volunteer at an IFB camp, Kite River this year. She's going to be working there all summer. So we allow them to be around people we trust. We allow good influences in their life. They travel. We let them live life. We encourage independence. We encourage friendships. They do things. they see the world. My kids have probably seen the world a lot more than other people because I know how to travel cheap. We have friends in other countries, different things like that. They experience things. They have friends, they go places, but they follow our rules while doing it. I haven't struggled with my girls when it comes to dress. They've pretty much adopted the same dress standards I have. Um, there's never been rebellion when it comes to that. If I deem something too short, that might be about the only thing. They'll begrudgingly put on something else, but it's not a huge battle, you know. We encourage them. We tell them often we love them. They follow our rules for the most part because they strive to please us and they don't want to let us down. Will we ever have one that's different? Maybe. And I'll talk, I don't know, about what we did after that happens, but we get after them we needed. Not everything is always rosy and fun, but we know when we've gone too far too. Raising teens is a delicate balance of giving wisdom and instruction while allowing them more freedom. And with that, the opportunity to fail as well. I've really enjoyed the teen years so far, and I love the relationship that I have with my teens and my adult kids. It's been really fun. It's been really fun so far. And lest you think I'm making things up, just ask our church, ask those who know us and know our kids and our teens, and they know our kids love us and want to please us. They know we love our kids and we love our teens, and we want them to succeed, and we try to set them up for success. So, I would also say too, like, as you're raising kids, even when it comes to my kids, don't tell your kids things like, oh, if you could only be like so and so. I've never compared my kids to other kids while raising them. I've always just told them, you're a McMurtry, we do things this way. You're a McMurtry, we don't do this. You're a McMurtry, we do this. I've not said, why can't you be more like the Smith kids? Why can't you be more like them? Because I think that's discouraging. And our kids aren't the Smith kids. Our kids are the McMurtry kids. And of course, they're going to be different home setting, different parents. They're going to be completely different. So, I don't know. Let me see. I'm sorry. That's good that your 18-year-old has chosen. It can go one of both ways. A lot of times when you start having a prodigal, it trickles down to the other kids. And unfortunately, especially if your oldest or your second oldest is a rebel, oftentimes the kids younger are like, he's doing things dad tells us not to do. He's doing things mom tells us not to do. And nothing's happening to him. God's not striking him dead. I'm going to do it too. Because you need to raise your kids too with this. It's not, sin can be fun. And I think it's doing our kids a disservice to try to act like there's no fun things out there that are, it's not fun to party. It's so boring. Don't lie to your kids. But you can teach them that sin has consequences. It might be fun to get high, but then what if you do something really stupid when you're high, like shoot someone or hurt someone? You're going to be in jail for the rest of your life. Teach them that sin does have consequences. It's not to say that sin can never be fun. So I think we do a disservice to them. And oftentimes this is what happens, but the other way can be true too. If the oldest or second oldest starts making decisions that start negatively impacting their life, such as prison time, jail time, they do stupid things, then the younger siblings could wake up and be like, whoa, I never want that. And we've tried to use people in our own life as an example to our kids. And it's okay. Look at this person. They chose to do this with their life. And now look at where they're at. They're sitting in jail. Or they chose to do this with their life. They chose to commit fornication. They chose to have a baby out of wedlock. Now they hate each other's guts, but he has to pay child support for the rest of his life while being married to this woman and dealing with child support and trying to have visitation rights. And it affects this. He can't move away because he has to stay close because he has this other kid. And there's so many scenarios and situations that you can use as teaching examples to your kids. So, yeah, I am sorry to hear that law of kind lesson. I hope that your 18-year-old has learned from it and does decide to do right. So, yes, and I agree, Chanello. She said there are kids that act good in church because they're being forced to do so. Therefore, comparing your kids to those good kids isn't right because you have no idea what's going on in that family. And that is so true. That is so very true. We don't know what's going on in that family until they become adults and they start saying what's going on in that family. So, the truth always comes out in the end. Your fruit is always shown. And I just hope and pray that we as moms and wives and mothers, if we're messing up in an area, we can ask God for just the humility to admit when we mess up and try to readjust, because our kids, their lives are so important. Whether or not they go on to serve God is going to affect our grandchildren. It's going to affect our great grandchildren. And there's so much, you know, that has to do with future generations that depends on us being the best wives and moms that we can be. So, I pray that we'll all grow together, learn together, adjust when necessary, encourage each other, pray for each other, because we all don't have it figured out. We can all learn from another. We can all learn from one another, and we can all be better Christians and moms and wives at the end of the day, myself included. I'm still learning along this journey. Thank you all for being there with me. Thank you for being encouraging. Thank you for your words of wisdom that I hear in the Gently Led Sisters group. And thank you for the sweet spirit that I feel among most of you. Thank you for that sweet spirit. So anyways, I hope you all got a lot out of this month of March. I almost said May. Out of this month of March with all the different series with raising kids. Eventually, I'll do relationships with adults. I'm like 5 years into it, so I've got some tips and I don't know, some different things, but I'm enjoying the adult years too. I was just thinking it's so much fun having kids that are adults that you have so much in common with and you get to have fun with now, right? Like Abby and I have a London trip scheduled for later in August. It's going to be so much fun. And it's fun. Raise your kids well, and it's a lot of fun. So anyways, oh, it's April. What I was thinking, oh my word, guys, I was thinking March. March was not that. Wow, Chinello. I have a lot on my plate. So anyways, okay. We will see you all next week. And next week will be May, right? Because I got to come up with a different topic. So yes. Man, I need more sleep or something. Okay.